Okay, here are another couple of examples for probability questions. This first one is multiple choice, and it says Linda has 2 bouquets of flowers. Each bouquet has 12 roses. Then it says bouquet A has 24 flowers and bouquet B has 12 flowers. So which statement is true? The probability of randomly selecting a rose from bouquet A is greater than the probability of choosing a rose from bouquet B. Okay, remember from my last video that we're talking about an event, and our first event that we need to check here is selecting a rose from bouquet A. What is that probability? Let's start with that. Okay, well, bouquet A has a total of 24 flowers, and we were told here that each bouquet had 12 roses, so I've got 12 over 24 as my probability. I can reduce this fraction, so I'm going to. That comes to 1/2. Okay, so the probability of selecting a rose from bouquet A is 1/2. Now, this question gives us another event, and that is the choosing a rose from bouquet B. So that means we need to find the probability of choosing a rose from bouquet B. Well, in bouquet B, we have 12 roses because each bouquet has 12 roses. And we're going to divide that by our total number of flowers. Here, that is also 12. And 12 divided by 12 is 1. So this was my probability for bouquet B. And this was my probability for bouquet A. Now, returning to our statement, it's asking us, is the probability for A bigger than the probability for B? And we can see that it's not, because the probability for A we found was 1/2, and that's certainly not bigger than 1. So A we can say is not true. Okay, what about B? The probability of randomly selecting a daisy from bouquet B is 1. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all, because bouquet B only had 12 flowers, and we know that all 12 of those flowers are roses. Also, nothing in our question said anything about daisies, so we can't assume that any of the other flowers, if this had been talking about bouquet A, for instance, would have been daisies, because the question did not tell us that to start with. So now we can look at option C. The probability of randomly selecting a rose from bouquet B is less than the probability of choosing a rose from bouquet A. Well, this really isn't saying anything different than statement A did. It's just flipped our words around, but it's still asking us, is bouquet B smaller? And that's the same as the probability of bouquet A being greater than. So we already know that this statement's not true, because the probability of choosing a rose from bouquet B is bigger than bouquet A. So that leaves us with D. The probability of selecting a rose from bouquet B is 1. We can see from our work right here that that is true, so D here would be our answer. Okay, here's another question. This one is not multiple choice, but it says Maylene is setting up tables for a Halloween party. 5 of the tables will be covered in black tablecloths, and 4 of the tables will be covered in orange tablecloths. Each table can sit 3 people. Guests will be randomly seated. What is the probability that the first guest, Jake, will be seated at an orange table? Okay, well, remember, we always have to keep our event in mind. And here our event is the first guest, Jake, is going to be seated at an orange table. So again, we have to look at our number of choices that fulfill our event, and that means how many of our tables are covered in orange tablecloths. Well, the question tells us that here 4 of the tables will be covered in orange tablecloths. So that is our numerator, 4. Out of how many total tables? The other tables here that are going to be covered in black tablecloths, there are 5 of them. So 5 plus 4 is 9. That makes our denominator 9 here. So the probability that the first guest will be seated at an orange table is 4 over 9. Let's make a cautionary note here that this statement, each table can sit 3 people, doesn't really help our question any since we're only talking about our first table, our first guest. Um, if we were talking about multiple people, we would have had to take all of our number of chairs into consideration, but this is just talking about the first guest. So we're only concerned with this first probability. And don't worry about this. Don't try to make that number work in the question just because you see it. Okay?